Welcome back to the Matter of Facts podcast on the Prepper Broadcasting Network. We talk prepping, guns, and politics every week on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. Go check out our content at mwfpodcast.com on Facebook or Instagram. You can support us via Patreon or by checking out our affiliate partners. I'm your host, Phil Rabley, and my co-host, Andrew Bobo, is on the other side of the mic, and here's your show.
Oh, hello.
We are going to be super awkward today, apparently.
I wasn't ready.
We've been sitting here for like 10 minutes just fooling with each other and bickering over nonsense and poking at each other. And she's been sitting here watching the countdown, bantering to the audience. They can't hear her yet the entire time of the pre-roll, but she's not ready.
I was just scratching my eyebrow. That's all. Good afternoon, evening, everyone.
Yeah. So Andrew's not available. I shanghaied my wife, and we kind of had a little bit of a different topic in mind tonight. Anybody happens to catch this out on the interwebs, welcome to join in the chat and tell us what y'all think. But we'll just get right down to it, and this may not be a super long one. We'll just have to see how it plays out. But this is something that, like, I've been, I wouldn't say fighting with or struggling with, but something I've been thinking about for a while. And when I talked to my wife about it, she kind of indicated that maybe it was something that had been on her mind too, to a degree. Yay, nay?
Yeah, I mean,
this is completely unrehearsed, by the way. So
they're always unrehearsed, but I guess I don't think about this kind of stuff. It's not always on the forefront of my mind like it is for you. Like, I don't know. I just have too much other stuff to be thinking about. Do I live in an echo chamber, and who's in my tribe? I guess more, not so much my echo chamber or an echo chamber, but yeah, I mean, tribe is always there. I mean, I have different tribes, though. Do you have different tribes?
To a degree, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I'm not one for having, like, a tremendous number of acquaintances to begin with. Like, I'd rather have, like, a few very, very solid friends I feel like I can depend on, and if I don't feel like I can depend on you, then I'd rather not even have you around. But that's just my personality, is to have a very, very small, dense circle. But I mean, yeah, you know, I kind of have, like, you know, family, which y'all are involved in, and my parents and my brother and sister and all them, and the extended family to a degree. And then I've got, like, you know, the tribe, the minions, the patrons, a lot of the close friends that we've made through the podcast. And a couple other ancillary handful of people that I know through social media, through podcasting, through PBN. But, I mean, I guess, yeah, I might have a couple of different tribes. But,
are you like me, where you have, in all of your tribes, you have, like, a hierarchy?
No.
That might just be a woman thing. I don't know.
That sounds sexist.
No, I mean, I guess hierarchy's not it. That's probably not the right word. And I'm probably not going to use a lot of the right words. Thursday is my back-to-back day at school, and my brain is a little fried, talking about nebulas and making nebulas and everything else. So not necessarily a hierarchy. I guess more like, do you trust other people more in your cliques, in your little groups?
I would say that it depends on the subject. Like, within a lot of these groups, we all kind of coalesced around, like, common interests, common knowledge, common areas of study. And from that perspective, there's a guy in one of my groups who is one of the go-to electronic nerds. If I have any question about DC, AC, circuits, running wires, building circuits, anything in that vein, anything about batteries, I've got one go-to and a couple other guys that know more than I do. Mm-hmm. And I would take his opinion over someone else's because I just know his knowledge base is greater and his experience is. And then, like, in the realm of, like, reloading, I tend to stand out as more of a subject matter expert in a lot of crowds. Not that I know everything, but I just know more than the average person does.
Right.
So I guess from that perspective, yeah, but it's not like there's a set pecking order where so-and-so is at the top of the list, so he automatically knows the answer to all questions. I just don't think that's reasonable.
Yeah, it's not what I meant. Like that when I said there's a hierarchy in like tribes or whatever. Yeah, you explained it how I was thinking. So like there are certain people that I would go to for certain things. And unfortunately, there are people within my different tribes that I trust more than others. But that doesn't mean I can't be friends with them. It just means that I have to be selective in what I tell them or ask of them, you
Yeah.
know.
And this might be, I guess, getting more to the core of what my original thought was. But, like, there's really not nice ways to put some of this. So some of this is just not going to be that nice to say. But, like, the past 3 years have caused me, and I know you to some degree, but definitely me, to kind of have to cull my friend group. And I don't mean literally my group of friends, but like the group of people that I have an open line of communication with. I've had to shut some of those lines.
Yes.
I don't know permanently yet, but I've definitely had to close them for the time being because certain people that I knew proved to me through actions and through words that we could not have a civil disagreement over opinion. And that like you know this, you've met some of my friends you've met some of my friends from work. I've talked to you about some of them. And I work in a very, very progressive workplace. It's largely dominated by lifelong Democrats and liberals and progressives. And the people in that group that I call friends, like, we can have a civil disagreement. We can disagree about policy or about social issues, but we attack the opinion of the issue, not each other. And that I'm comfortable with, and that I'm happy to do at any time. What frustrates me is I realized that there were people in my life who I couldn't have a civil disagreement with anymore. Something happened in 2020. Y'all know what. And at that moment, it seemed like the portions of the country got divided. There was a big
Yeah.
group in the middle that kind of kept their mouths shut, kept their heads down, and kept to themselves. There was one portion on this side and one portion on this side, and if you were on this side couldn't have a civil disagreement with you anywhere, couldn't have a difference of opinion. It was, you're on the other team, you are the enemy.
Right.
And the minute I realized that happened, I started ejecting people from my life. Because I refuse to have a person that has contact with me, has access to my family, who I think might wish me or do me harm. And there were people that wished me harm. And the minute that happened, I was like, out. You're out. Don't know forever, possibly, but definitely out until some kind of contrition has been made. And so far, there hasn't been. Not even an admission of what was said, as if I'm stupid and don't have eyes and ears and know what was said. But it's like that happened and that was an event, and I made those decisions, cut those people out, and move forward. And then as more time has passed, I've started having these conversations in my own head, which now means I'm having these conversations with you and with the audience. But it's like, in the world we have today, where I see more and more political and social polarization, where I see not so much in this state, but in other state red flag laws, extreme risk protection orders, if you want to use the pretty term, but red flag laws, where I see more and more people who have certain values I align with that are being hung out by once friends and family. I have to start asking myself, like, where's my balance point at this point? There's this worry I've always had about retreating into my echo chamber, where everyone thinks the way I do, and if you don't think the way I do, I don't want anything to do with you, and I've never wanted to be that person. But I'm finding more and more as time passes, that is becoming the safer choice. And that worries me.
Yeah, I think it is a safer choice. I think it's okay to go into your echo chamber. I don't think that you should stay there. Like, I'm not one of those people that I just want you to tell me what I want to hear, and we believe the same thing or whatever. I don't think it's safe. I don't think you're not going to grow from that. and you're not going to learn anything new from that. And you're certainly not going to build a bigger tribe from that, unless people come into the same tribe with the same thoughts and values. So I think it's okay to retreat to your echo chamber every now and then and stay there for as long as your mental health needs to stay there. And then you need to come back out. Does that make sense?
It does. I guess, like I said, like within that context of like red flag laws, if if let's say hypothetically, we live in Maryland or some godforsaken place where somebody can literally make a phone call and have your front door kicked in. Like that, for anybody that disagrees about that's how red flag laws end up working, that's literally how they work. I can quote case law that shows that's how that works, and that's how it plays out. But let's say we live in one of those hellholes. We make a friend. That friend comes into the home, sees a gun hanging off, sees an evil black AR hanging from the wall. Next thing I know, I've got 3 or 4 of Maryland's finest kicking in my front door because they red flagged me.
Okay.
Not that applies to me because of where we live. Not that applies to me because, quite frankly, we don't let people into this house that we don't have some kind of trust with, and usually I'm pretty good about sterilizing it to a degree. But, like, there are other people that may have that situation where the fact that they're gun owners, the fact that they're conservatives or libertarians or any of these labels makes them the enemy. They're guilty of wrongthink.
Yeah.
And in those situations, letting the wrong person into your friend group who would then dime you out as one of the undesirables could lead to problems. That's kind of where my mind is. Like, it's one of those things where, like, it hasn't affected this family because we're very guarded about who we let close to us, but also for the fact that I just don't care to a large degree. Like, if you don't like me, don't like me.
Yeah.
I'll give you plenty of reasons not to like me if you really want to find one.
Yeah, I have found that my friend groups have dwindled, not so much since 2020 and COVID and all that stuff, but just simply because of my peace of mind. Like, I used to have all sorts of friends in college, but now you've turned me into a homebody, and having friends mean I have to go out more, and I have to, no offense to my friends, but I have to answer your text messages, and I have to return your phone calls.
If it involves her putting on pants and makeup, you're going to lose a whole lot of...
I don't have to put on pants and makeup to return phone calls and text messages, and sometimes...
I mean, as far as going out.
Oh, yes. Well, no, I don't have... Yes, that. But, I don't know. Some days my brain is so done that I just don't want to have that any conversation. I just want to read a book or take a bath or go to sleep.
I know there's a certain look I get which tells me that I need to shut up and leave her alone.
There is. It's
a look that says, unless you're a book, I don't want to look at you right now.
Yeah. Or, yeah, I need you to be quiet. Sometimes, though, Phil gets to talking, and you all will know this because of what he does on this podcast, but his voice puts me to sleep, and sometimes, like, if we're laying in bed or whatever, Phil can just be talking to me about the most amazing thing ever, and he's so excited about it, and I am on the verge of snoring because he's just talked about it for so long, and now we're just gonna go to sleep.
I'm so abused and neglected.
Oh, please. But yeah, back to like my friend groups and stuff. I don't remember where I was going with that, but yeah, my friend group has kind of dwindled down. I have a core group of friends that I don't work with, that don't lead this lifestyle to a point. Some of them do kind of lead a prepper-ish lifestyle. I have my tribe at school. I have my tribe in my prepper life that I know I can always turn to. And I think that's it. My other tribes, like, I don't have much of a tribe within the community anymore because I don't work in the community much anymore. But yeah, I'm like, can we all just buy like some land somewhere and make a commune?
Such a hippie.
Let's do it. Who's in?
I actually know some people
I
that,
know. We've been confronted with that question. Like, do we want to buy some land in Texas?
I mean, I've I told a person who basically said, "Hey, if I got X number of families together, this much buy-in, like, we could buy like this big old chunk of ranch out here, middle of nowhere, homestead, live off the land." And I pretty much told him, I'm like, I could squirrel that up,
Yeah.
but I don't think the rest of the families could.
Yeah.
And we're just not in the position where we really want to make a move like that on our own at this point. But
Yeah.
anyway,
So what else, Phil?
well, I mean, I agree with what you're saying about not wanting to stay in the echo chamber. I worry that staying within your tribe too much can turn into an echo chamber, though. Because, I mean,
Well, don't you consider them the same? That's
it's,
what I'm.
it's a different connotation, though, in my mind. Because,
Okay.
like, tribe is like people you can count on. People you can go to for advice, for help, for support, for whatever. An echo chamber is within like social construct. Echo chamber is I go to this group of people, I ask a question, I get the exact same answer every time because everyone in the group thinks exactly the same.
Yes.
Which the fact that the entire group thinks exactly the same in some opinions invalidates the answer because
Right.
it's like I go here to get this answer. Well, you're not getting an impartial answer because you're always going to get the same answer because that's the entire group thinks this exact same way. And I guess for me, like on the one hand, I am concerned about letting people in, and on the other hand, I'm concerned that by not letting people in, we socially close ourselves off. And there is a balance point there. Like you've brought friends into the house. We've had like friends of Piper's parents come over and meet us. I mean, I feel like there's a balance point where we can be open to a degree to outsiders, but then there's a lot of things in this house that, like, going back to conversations I had with Piper when she was a child, little bitty child, about how these things you don't tell people that don't live in this house. It's none of their business. They have no reason to know, like, where the guns and ammo are, where the food is, where the water is. None of that stuff is anybody's business that doesn't live in this house. Period, end discussion. And because we've kind of installed those boundaries around this is the sensitive information that we can let people in as long as we keep the sensitive stuff guarded. Know what I mean?
Yeah. I had a question and now I can't remember it.
It'll come back to you.
Yeah, well, you changed the subject. I can't remember now. Darn, I was gonna keep this going. It was about letting people in. I don't know. I don't know. Now we have to figure out what else we're going to talk about.
I'm telling you, it'll come back to you.
It will. Probably tonight when I'm asleep. Falling
After
asleep.
I talk you
you've
to sleep?
talked me asleep tonight. I don't know. It was about letting people in. I don't remember. I just think it is important, like, I think your tribe is your safe place, and your echo chamber, yes, can be detrimental. I think if you stayed in that echo chamber, it could be detrimental, and you have to, even having a friend that doesn't think the same way that you do, or that we do. I mean, we have some of those friends, and it's healthy. If those people are mature enough that you can have those sorts of discussions with them. I have one person in mind, two people in mind that we've recently just met because they're friends, their parents of friends of Piper's. And I don't think that we agree on everything, but listening to them is interesting. You know who I'm talking about, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Listening to them is very interesting to get their point of view on things. And I was actually kind of shocked that we had more in common with the way that the way we thought about different things and the opinions we had on current events and things like that, which was nice to know, because for so long, especially with all the current events happening since 2020, we have been ostracized and put into this category of, well, terrorists, and we've been called all sorts of horrible names. We've had death threats, that we should die, or we deserve to die, and things like that.
Have our child taken from us. That was my favorite.
We've had the threat of having our child removed, and all those other things. So opening up a relationship with other people that don't value the same things we do, definitely in the last few years has been hard for me, for you. I think you think about it more than I do. Like, when I'm meeting someone new, that's not my first thought is, how are you going to threaten me and my family? Aw, thank you, Kyle. We try. Y'all are pretty badass too. Don't sell yourself short. But it was interesting to sit down and talk to them and realize that we actually did have more in common. And I would imagine, and I didn't ask her this, but I would imagine that because of where they're from, a very liberal state, I have to wonder if they got more backlash than we did, being where we're from and with the common whatever is here. Guns are cool, or not just cool, but guns are a necessity here. And more people have guns in Louisiana than obviously where they're from, which is California. And their way of thinking on certain COVID issues is not popular there. It's more popular where we are here. Kyle Wilson, I'm going to come to Alabama and just kick your ass.
We'll probably see him in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, I'll kick your ass in Arkansas. You better stop all that. Anyway, so I think it's important to have those new types of people coming into your life. It is important to stay guarded. I hate to say that. I used to not be a guarded person at all. I was always hurt and whatever.
And then you met me.
Well, and then I learned that I was being a little naive and yes, do you have something to say?
No?
Go
ahead.
I don't know what I was going to say now. Naive and ridiculous. Too trusting. I was definitely too trusting.
You were too trusting.
Yes.
And maybe that's where I fall short, is that I'm not trusting enough. But I think some of this also comes back down to perspective, though, because if one was to take a poll of the two of us, totally separate from each other, about any of a host of political, social, opinions or dividing points, I lean more towards anarcho-libertarian, whereas I think you're more of a conservative. So I guess what I'm saying is my opinion, my positions on certain things are so much more extreme than yours are. I feel like maybe that's why you're less guarded, because even though your opinion might be right of center, it's still towards the center on a lot of things, whereas mine is way, way, way over there. Burn it all to the ground. No government. Get rid of the state. Start with the Department of Education.
I think I'm moving towards your way of thinking.
What you do, boys and girls, is you wait till your wife goes to sleep, and then you drop the black pill into her mouth while she's asleep. Every night, it builds up over time.
Oh my God. Yeah, because that's exactly what you did.
You're asleep, how do you know?
No, it's been 18 years of listening to you while I fall asleep. That's what it is. You're still talking while I'm sleeping, and so it soaks in a little bit more.
Gillian, down with the Department of Education.
I was down with the Department of Education in 2020. But I also think being more into this lifestyle has really opened my eyes to things that we should be doing and shouldn't be doing and as a family. And then where in the hell this country has gone since 1776. Like it's spooky. It's not even just spooky. It's embarrassing. I don't know. There's just a lot, and that just takes you right back to are you more comfortable? I guess you have to figure out where you're more comfortable. Are you more comfortable with your tribe? Or are you more comfortable in an echo chamber? And then you have to realize that there's downfalls to both. There's good things in both. And to me, I think you have to be willing to leave each one of those to grow. Because, for instance, you're my tribe, you're my family, but you're also a part of my echo chamber. Don't you think?
Given the number of times you and I vehemently disagreed with each other?
You don't think you're part of my echo chamber?
I could, remind you of conversations we've had where you have walked out of the room angry because...
You don't meet that in any of your other echo chambers?
Not terribly often, no.
Just your wife?
Just my wife.
Oh. Lucky me.
I told you on some things I have very extreme opinions. So extreme that even you disagree with them.
I guess then I don't have an echo chamber. And I guess because I don't care as much as you do. Because when it starts to get to the point on social media or all that stuff where everyone is bickering and calling each other names and the threats and the this and the that, I just don't want to be a part of it. So I'm not going to retreat to an echo chamber to feel better about myself and to feel better about my values and my beliefs. I'm just going to leave it the hell alone and not come back. You know what I'm saying? I think, to me, especially when you start talking about politics and policy and all that other stuff, it's not that I don't want to fight the fight. Obviously, I want to fight the fight. I've physically fought the fight.
You just don't want to light yourself on fire to fight it.
I don't want to light myself on fire to fight it. And I don't want to lose myself in the static of the fight. I want to actually do something. And I feel like, especially with social media, that is where we're at. It's just a lot of noise. It's a lot of freaking noise, and it's not going to go anywhere. So that's why you attend the protests, and that's why you attend the school board meetings, and that's why you attend the city council meetings and things like that. Because otherwise, you're part of the static. You're just part of the noise.
No, that's fair. That's also why, throughout the course of these podcasts and talking to the listenership, I've encouraged them to become advocates for what they believe in. Because, me go out on social media and with the limited reach I have, try to convince people that my way of thinking is the right way of thinking only goes so far. Whereas, if each individual person is willing to speak up, then I feel like that has a greater impact.
What's so funny is you said the word advocate, and so every 2 weeks we have what's called a spirit word, where we, during morning assembly, we talk about that spirit word, and it is a lot of what it sounds like. So there's all sorts of things, but the next 2 weeks is advocacy. And so we're trying to teach our students, one, to stand up for yourself and what you believe, and two, to stand up for your friends, stand up for your school, stand up for all those things. So I was going to say we're indoctrinating our children, but it's not really indoctrinating them. We're teaching them to...
That is indoctrination. It's not a bad thing. All indoctrination is trying to teach someone a set of values. If you want to be clinical Webster's dictionary about it.
Yeah. Clinical Webster's dictionary about it, sure, but
not
2023 indoctrination is a bad word. And it is. You don't think that? People use it just as much as they use bigot and all the other slang words to call you names. You're indoctrinating our children. You're indoctrinating blah blah blah. You know, and yeah, if you use it as what Webster used it as, Webster uses it, how he uses it, then it's not a bad thing.
Well, but
You made me start thinking.
I guess what I'm getting at is like, I believe that there's a just cause for indoctrinating young people in a what should be a shared cohesive value set. Things like honesty and integrity and courage and advocating for yourself and your friends, like those are principles that we all should be able to agree we should teach young people. If someone wants to make the argument that we shouldn't teach religion in school, despite the fact that I'm a Christian, I'm actually kind of okay with that, because I am of the opinion that there are certain things that the parents should teach the children. Things like religion, things like opinions on social issues. A lot of that's going to come from the parents to the children. I think a lot of those things do need to be taught by the parents. I think the goal of school is to say, this is what we all agree on, this is what we teach your kids. Everything to this side and this side, y'all are mom and dad. Y'all go handle that. That's y'all's lane to be in.
I know that is what you absolutely believe, and I agree with you. I think parents should be teaching their children that. However,
parents should also teach your kids how to balance checkbooks.
Okay, but parents aren't doing that anymore.
Nope.
Our generation does not do that. They rely on teachers and people in their community to teach their children. One, because, well, there's a bunch of reasons. Parents can't get their heads out of their phone. They're always in their phone. And now you have we have for a long time, you have two income households. Mom and dad both go to work now. So there isn't someone home to get the children off the bus or put the children on the bus unless you're working from home. But even then, just like you're a split second. You walk us to the door, tell us goodbye, kisses, have a great day, and then you're back at work in the office. But for a lot of parents now, their work day doesn't end at 5 o'clock when they come home. They're still checking emails. They're still taking calls. They're still so they're absorbed in their life that their children are not. They're either learning something off of YouTube or TikTok, which I see at school, or they're learning it from their friends, or they're relying on their teachers and the staff at that school to teach them these things. Why do you think then education has just fallen in this country so much? And it's because the parents have removed themselves from the education of their children.
Which has placed burdens upon the teachers to be the teacher and the parent.
Absolutely.
That they can't fulfill.
Yeah, absolutely. And it trust me, it's hard enough to be the mother to one. I teach preschool 4, pre-K 4 through 7th grade. I have over 150 students that I see through my class every week. There is not one day where I'm not mom, Miss Rabelais, guidance counselor.
Miss Wabaway.
Miss Wabaway. Miss Wabaway. That's what one of my pre-Kers call me, Miss Wabaway. It's really cute. Hi, Phoebe. But we are expected to be those things. We're expected to teach them manners. We're expected to teach them how to work in a group. Obviously, that's part of school. We're expected to teach them how to work independently. And again, that's all part of school. But it's not being reiterated when they go home.
And you're also being expected to teach them manners and teach them consequences and teach them proper behavior while simultaneously being actively prevented from dispensing consequences.
Now, I can say my school...
In your school, which is an exception, you have a little bit more...
Yes, and now consequences aren't like, you can't paddle a child anymore. Like liberal punishment is not liberal. Corporal punishment is not a thing. Although, segue into another conversation another time, it is in some schools in Louisiana. But I can definitely tell my kids, your behavior is inappropriate. It is not acceptable in my classroom. you have one more time, and this is the consequence of what will happen. And then after that, this is what will happen. They are not getting that at home. Some of these kids come in and trust me, I love my job and love all of those children. And I can see that even because I teach at a private school, there are wealthy families, obviously. But those kids, I'm going to start crying. Those kids are hurting so bad for affection and love and attention from an adult, someone in that position of authority, because they're not getting it at home. Mom and dad are out partying every night. So now the oldest sibling has to cook dinner for all the younger siblings, or mom and dad are still at work until 8-9 o'clock at night. So they're with a nanny or an au pair or whatever. When do they see their parents? And it's just very sad to see. And so if they're not getting the love and attention that they deserve and need from their parents, they're certainly not getting the behavior and the consequences and the if you do this then this kind of thing.
Mentoring.
Yeah.
And on the other end of the spectrum, for a lower income family who sends their kids to public school, some of these public schools are basically zoos that are run by just the things we saw out of our public school system, which is hardly the worst in the country, hardly the worst in the state.
No.
But just things we saw made us uncomfortable enough to pull our child out and send her to private school and suck up the amount of money that costs. But in some of these schools in more urban city centers, they have children as young as ours bringing handguns and knives to school and fighting with teachers in the hallways on a weekly basis.
It was national news in Covington. There was a TikTok. What is it called? Like a
trend.
Trend, yes, where you hit your teacher. And so there were certain schools in the parish that beefed up their security officers and all that stuff. What are they called?
School resource officers.
School resource officers. And this one high school student came in and beat the hell out of her handicapped teacher to the point where she can no longer teach. She can no longer work. It's very sad what happened to this woman. And it was all caught on video. The children, the girls recorded it and posted it to TikTok, and it made national news. There are, the president of the teachers union posted the other day, he's actually, I don't know, people believe in unions and don't believe in unions, and you could go down that whole rabbit hole. But this guy seems to really be fighting for the teachers in the public school system here. And I know that it's refreshing for the teachers because the administration, for the most part, I think for the administration and the school board are not fighting for the teachers or the staff, the bus drivers and things like that. He posted some stats the other day of how many teachers have left the system in St. Tammany Parish. And one Slidell school, I'm going to probably get this wrong and I'll look it up in just a second, since 2017, 153 teachers have left. 2017, 153 teachers. I need to look it up and make sure. I'm probably saying that wrong. But,
no, but teacher retention, no matter what school you're talking about, has been awful.
Yeah.
It's been awful to the point where they've even, and now I'm going to say this and then I'm going to recant myself at the same time. But around here, they actually waived the requirement for teachers to even have their credentials. Basically, I think all you had to have was a bachelor's degree in anything, and you could be a teacher in Louisiana. And that policy was being driven by the fact that their retention was so low, they weren't going to be able to open schools on time if they didn't do something. Now, that being said, I did tell Gillian when that policy was instituted, I'm like, I have a feeling about licenses where my immediate knee-jerk reaction is the hardcore libertarian in me that says licensing is stupid. Because, no, my wife I don't think would disagree with me if I said I was perfectly capable of teaching like high school mathematics. I have a lot. I'm very good at math. I took a lot of math courses in college. I do a lot of math and statistics as part of my day job. I'm good at it. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to teach geometry or trig or any of that nonsense, or even calculus, in my opinion, if you're good at math. But because I don't have a teaching certificate prior to the change of this policy, I couldn't teach high school math in the state of Louisiana.
Yeah.
And that policy is stupid to me at that moment. Like when the policy, which was meant to make sure that we had qualified teachers, is preventing an obviously qualified person from doing a job, I now have a problem with the policy. So on the one hand, I'm glad they overturned that policy, but they did it because there is such horrible retention among teachers, they had no choice. In other words, they didn't change the policy because it was a stupid policy. They changed the policy because they're backed into a corner. Which, did you find out what the...
I did, and I did misquote that. I was looking at a different number of totals of one of the years, but I got the years wrong. It was 2016 to 21, so it's not even the most up to date, and only 1 year of COVID that is reflected. But the highest was Slidell High with 33, and then the second was Fountain Blue High, which is where Piper would go to Fountain Blue Junior if she were in public. It was at 32, but the highest numbers are within the high schools. Yeah, so I would like to see those numbers updated to 2023 at the end of May and see what it is. I'd also like to see how many students, how many parents have pulled their students out of public schools.
Oh, I know.
At least in this parish, I would like to know. I know that at our school there is a wait list for not all classes, but most of the classes. We have a wait list to get into our school.
I almost wonder if that's publicly accessible information.
Well, it is publicly accessible. I just don't think it's been tallied up yet. Maybe.
Good point. Anyway, something you said earlier kind of rubs alongside everything we've just been talking about. You made the comment like the country has slid so far from where it was in 1776. Bearing in mind that in the spirit in which this country was founded, we violently pulled away from a ruling monarch. Mm-hmm. We decided as a people, as a nation, we were going to be responsible for ourselves. We were going to institute a government for the people, by the people. We were going to literally figure our own lives out. And what I think has happened, and I can't point to any specific point in history. I want to say it was probably before you and I were born, honestly. And maybe this is a slow progression, but what I think has happened is that people have decided to abdicate their personal responsibility to something else. Parents abdicated their responsibility to mentor and teach their children to teachers who are not parents. The average person has abdicated their responsibility to protect themselves to the state, to police, to whatever. Mm-hmm. No one wants...
Food is to the government, and housing is in the government.
I was going to say, look what happens after a major disaster. You've got people calling the local radio station asking when the grocery stores are going to reopen because they're hungry. Mm-hmm. No one takes responsibility for themselves. No one takes responsibility for their own little world. No one wants to be responsible for them and their stuff. They want someone else to care for them and take care of the stuff so that they can eat sugar and stare at the boob tube and just be a vegetable.
But don't you think that it was designed to do that? Don't you think at some point something happened? I would say probably in the maybe 40s or 50s.
Honestly?
Maybe even the 60s.
Honestly, what I think... I think that we have become victims of our own success. In other words, we as a nation have had such a great period of time without a major cataclysm, without a major war. And I understand global war on terror just finished. We're about to kick off World War III in Ukraine. I get all that. Stick with me for a second. When you look at military recruitment numbers, a war, even a war on two fronts in Iraq and Afghanistan, didn't touch more than 1.5% of this country. Mm-hmm. If you look at the number of veterans and their families and maybe close friends. We could be at war in two different countries and it not touch 98% of the population. So we haven't had a period where all the men went to war and most of them didn't come home.
Yeah.
We haven't had a period of time where whole family lines ceased to exist because in one swoop every male member of a family died all at the same time. We haven't had, like, contrary to what anybody wants to say about 2020, I've seen the friggin' mortality statistics that came out of COVID. COVID did not wipe 50% of the population out.
Mm-mm.
We haven't had a world war. We haven't had a famine. We haven't had a tsunami. We haven't had an earthquake crack the country in half. We, as a nation, haven't had a calamity, a true calamity, since probably World War One. You can make the argument World War II, maybe, but if you look at terms of like death toll, men deployed, and everything else, we haven't had a major event since World War One that really upended our society, that caused rationing, that caused hardship. And so everybody our age, and most of the people our parents' age even, have grown up in the warm, comfortable little bosom of the United States of America with no hardship, with no struggle, with more wealth in the hands of the poorest person in this country than middle class people in most other countries will ever see for the rest of their lives. With so much food at our disposal. Pro tip: someone told me this story. I didn't experience this, but I have no reason to doubt the person that did. But they were talking to someone in Iraq, and that person made the comment that America must be this really rich nation because even our poor people are fat. And that was shocking to him because if you're poor in most of our countries, you die because you starve, or you're skinny as a rail because you could barely afford to eat. And he was just shocked the fact that, well, your poor people are fat. Y'all must have, I mean, there must be just open bins of food everywhere where people can just eat for free because your poor people don't starve to death. So we are a victim of too much comfort. We're a victim of too much excess and success. We're a victim of, like, we have created a society, we've created an environment so soft, it allowed people to get soft. And then most people were more than happy to eat the sugar and watch the boob tube and now watch the TikToks and all this other crap that friggin' soften up our bodies and soften up our minds. And that's how we wound up where we are today, in my opinion. In a very long-winded diatribe.
Yeah. Well, and me sitting here with my tinfoil hat, I put it on. Totally believe that it was engineered to do that. I do.
I can't. I can see very convincing arguments for either it being engineered or just being a cyclical function of society. I mean, you can draw really incredible parallels between where we're at in American history and like pre-fall of Rome.
Yeah, I guess that's true too.
Massive corruption in the Senate, excess, the Colosseums.
Well, and then if you think about it, we are still a very, very baby nation. Very baby. If you look at the other,
Well, I mean, we haven't done like the French and hauled out the guillotines yet and emptied out Congress.
That needs to happen.
For legal purposes, that's a joke. I think tarring and feathering people would definitely get some gears turning, though. But on the real, I mean, we the bloodiest revolution we had was the Civil War. Like, in terms of military engagements.
Against ourselves.
Well, yeah, but that's why the American death toll is so high, because you count both sides.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you look back through our history, like, that's honestly what I think. Like, whether it was engineered this way to weaken us from the inside, or whether this is just the natural rise and fall of an empire because we got fat and comfortable and content, now we're just sitting there waiting to be plucked, who knows? What I would say, though, is that this is why I'm always on people's butts, including yours, thank you for putting up with me, about how it's so important to learn to defend yourself. It's so important to prepare for a bad day. It's so important to to get outside, go out in the heat, go camping, go ride a bike, go walk, go do something to be uncomfortable, get out of the air conditioning, and push your body a tiny little bit. Because if not, then we all just become gelatinous. Pat McNamara dropped that one a while back, and it stuck with me. He referred to the sugar eating TikTok watchers as gelatinous, and I was like, ooh, that's good. I like that. That's a very descriptive word, and it conjures up a mental image. Gelatinous.
Yeah, it does. It makes me think of all the people from Wall-E that lay in the chairs from that movie. That lay in the chairs and float around.
So since Gillian has reminded me, I just like Wall-E. For anybody that hasn't seen it, should watch it. It's a very cute movie. It's actually, it's probably going to wind up being the source of a tattoo Gillian and I want to get eventually down the road, maybe.
Not too far.
Okay, sooner or later.
God, it's been years since we talked about this tattoo.
Tattoos cost money, lady. I'm trying to get a family ready for the apocalypse.
Right.
But probably the thing that stuck with me the most in all that was all the people on this spaceship that are like 450, 500 pounds, and they drink soft drinks all the time, and they have to be in the little motorized scooters or the
chairs.
The mobility chairs to get them everywhere because they can't freaking walk. And then it goes to the part where it goes to like, I think it was a briefing for the captain where the ship's computer explained we can't bring these people back to Earth because they've been up here in zero gravity for so long that their bones have thinned and they've spread away from each other, and like they literally can't support their body weight in a full gravity environment anymore. And I thought to myself, I'm like, oh my God, that is happening right now in front of us. They're just they sit around and do nothing but drink soft drinks and watch TV all the time. And they're all as big as a Goodyear blimp. It was one of those weird...
Phil was freaking out over here.
I was freaking out because... Okay, like, there are some movies that I think are so on the nose, it has to be an intentional commentary. It has to be. It's like Idiocracy.
Yeah.
Idiocracy is my litmus test. If you watch Idiocracy and it scares the hell out of you, we are probably going to be good friends. If you watch Idiocracy and come away not a little bit uncomfortable, then I don't know if you, me, are not on the same level. Like, I mean, like, look, we just had Donald J. Trump as president, and the president in Idiocracy is President Camacho. He's a pro wrestler who calls Congress to action with a friggin' M249 saw burst into the air. I mean, like, you know.
It's been a very long time since I've seen that movie.
Everyone should take a moment to watch that. And then...
No, it's scary because that is what we have. Idiocracy was a foretelling of what was coming.
It was the only movie that started as a fiction and will one day turn into a documentary.
Yes.
Sort of
like your book.
Especially when we start putting Brawndo on the plants because they need electrolytes.
Stop.
Anyway, we'll probably cap this one off before we put everybody else to sleep. But I mean, I thought it'd be an interesting conversation just to talk about the various machinations that go on in my head about, you know, like us as a family and how we interact with the community and how far do we let people in that, you know, again, you're more trusting than I am, and I don't think that's a bad thing because frankly, if it wasn't for you, I'd be a hermit.
And in the meantime, you've made me a homebody.
Well, I mean, we met in the middle. I wave at the neighbors instead of, you know, hiding in the house like a bunker. But, I mean, it's one of those things that I have been thinking about. And especially because, like, our daughter is definitely more of a social butterfly than I am. She's getting invited to parties, and we're going with her. And, like, you know, I'm in the position now where I have to interact with people more that... I don't know. I'm having to kind of get out of my echo. I'm having to get out of my echo chamber and out of my safe space and interact with people who I very likely have little to nothing in common with and figure out where's that dividing line where I'm open enough to not make this person think I'm a complete weirdo, so that my kid is welcome, in their house, like to have friends, so she can have friends, without
Yeah.
without being like, oh yeah, by the way, I am one of the crazy prepper people that you hear about on TV.
I that is a disclaimer for me because I mean I teach most of her friends, but when it's time to meet their parents, who I don't see on a daily basis, I do put that out there sometimes, like because you want to know who your child is going over to their house and hanging out with, and what will she be exposed to, and I don't want them to be caught off guard when their friend walks past the office and sees targets hanging on the wall. And I know you put guns away when friends are here, but and there's really not much more sign of the lifestyle we lead in the public areas of our home. But I do put that out as a disclaimer. I mean, my coworkers know, my boss knows, my kids' friends' parents know. I don't hide that from them.
Yeah. I don't know that I would say I hide it. I guess I'm not a big sharer. It's probably
Yeah.
a good way to put it.
I get you.
Although, that being said, I'm not naming names, but somebody who's about 4.5 feet tall and lives in this house with us, when I chaperoned that field trip not too long ago, the two little girls in the back seat asked what was above their heads, which in the back of my truck is, a fire extinguisher and a tourniquet and a first aid kit and,
Yeah.
Stuff. And before I can even get a word out, Piper is walking them through everything in the truck and saying, yep, we're preppers. And I was like, thank you, kid. Thank you.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, she's not shy about it at all.
No, and I think that's great. I mean, she's part of our tribe and maybe echo chamber. She's more of an echo chamber now because of what she hears her parents saying. She'll form her own opinions.
I think she already has started to.
Well, yeah.
The reason I say that is because, like, I can see her applying things that she and I have discussed in ways I haven't talked to her about. Like, just the very beginnings of, like, I'm beginning to think there's a little bitty anarcho-libertarian inside her. And it's starting to come out.
You're so happy.
I am super excited because if I do only 2 things with my life that don't end in total disaster, I really hope that I'm a good husband.
Yes, you are a very good husband.
I can't screw that up. But I also really, really hope deeply that I raise a little girl who is positioned to take care of herself and to stand up for herself.
Well,
And she can only do that if she has courage and fortitude, but also if she knows what her rights are. And unfortunately, there's such pressure on society and on kids these days to give up themselves, their rights, their agency, their everything, because the collective says so.
yes.
And this is this is one of the reasons why I am so pedantic but adamant whenever I hear somebody say we live in a democracy. I'm like, bull crap, we do. We don't live in a democracy. We never have. We never will. I'll die before I see that happen. We live in a republic, a constitutional republic, where if 99 people vote to take the rights from the one says no, and that discussion ends. Mm-hmm. That is the form of government we live in. And she has to know that no matter what the 99 say, you have rights as an individual, and they cannot be taken or voted away from you. But most children will never be taught that in this country. And as a result, when the 99 says do A, they will. Because of societal pressure, because they've never been taught to think otherwise. Mm-hmm. So it was very important to me to teach my child that, to make sure that she understood no matter what other people say, no matter what other people try to pressure her to do, she gets to make that decision for herself and her family.
Yeah.
And the discussion is over. But what comes with that is you have to be willing to stand in front of the firing squad and say, I don't care what you threaten me with. I don't care how much pressure you apply. I don't care what nasty things you call me. I've made this decision. I am an individual. I have rights, and I say no.
She does that. You know that, right?
Oh,
She
I
does
know.
that at school. She stands up for her beliefs. She will argue her beliefs. And she doesn't just do it with her friends. She will do it respectively with her teachers.
She does it with us.
She's been doing it since second grade. I used to get phone calls all the time. Well, Miss Rabelais, Piper, argued with me about this, and this on the playground today. Well, I think we've told this story before. It was, there was a set of rules on the playground for some equipment. And there was a little boy who was not following the rules. Well, Piper is a rule follower. You tell her what the rules are. She's going to follow those rules. There's no gray. It is black and white. It always has been. And so she went up to the teacher and said, so-and-so is doing this on this equipment. And she was dismissed. And she said, that's not the rule, though. How come he gets to do that and I can't? And so in second grade, she's having this, I wouldn't say argument, but she's calling out the teacher saying, your rule, what you told me is this, and now you're not enforcing that rule with other people. And I got a phone call about it. And I don't think the teacher was happy with my response. Because I told the teacher, well, what is the rule? And she told me what the rule was. And I said, well, then Piper was right. You can't be upset with her because she followed a rule that you gave her. And you didn't.
And called you out on your BS.
I called her out in front of other classmates. Anyway,
Well,
that's our kid.
Yeah, but this is also the reason why, like, I've taught her and I've encouraged our parents to teach their kids. We need to have a whole parenting show.
We've said that. We haven't done that.
We
Maybe
need
we
to.
should have done that tonight.
We should have, but we didn't. And
Okay,
you
we'll
didn't.
put that in your notes.
I'll put it in my notes. But as we close out, like, one of the things that I've tried to teach Piper, and I think I have, and I encourage other parents to teach their kids, is I do think it's important to follow rules. I do think that like, once we all agree to a set of rules, it's super important that everybody follows them. Like, I'm notorious for saying this at work a lot of times, is that we're all going to live and die by the same set of rules. In other words, there's not going to be one standard for me and one standard for you, or one code of conduct for me and one code of conduct for you. No, we are all going to live and die by the same rules. We can debate about the rules. We can debate about whether or not they're right or fair or just or appropriate, but there will be no two standards, because I will fight that tooth and nail and I'll win every time.
Mm-hmm.
So I do believe that following a pre-agreed upon set of rules is important so that you can have a functioning society or a functioning social group. However, I've also been very quick to point out to Piper that when a rule makes no sense,
Yes.
when it makes no sense whatsoever, when it seems on the face of it to be capricious and arbitrary, I've always taught her, A, you have every right to challenge that rule. You have every right to respectfully ask your teacher, your administrator, your whatever, why is this rule here? And expect an answer. And if you don't get an answer, come and tell me. I will go to the school and they will answer me when I ask them, why is this rule here? And the situation you ran into with Piper was the teacher proved that rule wasn't valid because she was selectively enforcing it. And
Yeah.
the minute that happens, our child is done. She's not following a rule if everybody else isn't.
Yeah.
Because you've proven the rule does not exist for safety or for order or for any reason if you won't enforce it. So, if it sounds like I'm raising a little anarchist, I mean, okay, sue me. But
What could be worse?
in my defense, I mean, everybody that signed the Declaration of Independence were all anarchists too, so she's in
true.
good company.
That's true.
But I guess we'll go ahead and kick this one out the door. And next time Andrew's out of pocket, you and I will talk about...
We'll do a parenting episode.
I wonder if we could wrangle... I wonder if I could find a couple other people who want to come in on that.
If you're interested, message
Yeah.
us.
I mean, if you're out there in listener land and you feel like... You don't even have to put your face on the internet. I can actually, block that out. And the only people that ever know who you are if you want to use an assumed name is me, and I'll take that to the grave, because we've interviewed a couple of people over the years. I don't even think most of the audience realizes it, but Andrew and I have interviewed a few people who did so under assumed names, and to this day, nobody but me and Andrew know who they really were. So
I
that
probably was told, but I don't remember.
No, I
No?
don't even think I.
You lied to me?
Well, you didn't ask, so I didn't volunteer. But anyway. But yeah, next time, Gillian and I will do a parenting episode. But in a few days, Andrew and I are going to get together for another live chat to talk about the next chapter of him adulting and my lifelong obsession with not being able to leave a car in stock form, unmolested and unmodified.
Oh boy.
It'll be fun.
Get your pillows.
Matter of Fact's podcast heading out the door. Bye, y'all.
Good night.